Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Am I audible, sir? Hello?
Yes,
Am I
I
audible,
can
sir?
hear you. I can hear you.
Yes, sir. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome all for attending this session. I would like to introduce Mr. Ashish Mehta. Ashish Mehta is the co-founder of Engineering.in and in several entrepreneurs with 17 years of experience in building and scaling up of companies. I would like to tell you that Engineering.in is an initiative to drive education of suitable manufacturing practices across streams of engineering. Ashish sir has been instrument in starting International Advisory Council and Universal Purity Testing, several services private limited which provide product testing services for items such as water, air, textile, food, beverages. He is also the board of Federation in India Export Organization, also known as FICO. FICO is the Apex Trade Promotion Organization set up by the Ministry of Commerce in Government of India and the private sector. Prior to becoming an entrepreneur, Ashish has been a senior in senior position at British High Commission and a consulting firm in Delhi NCR. Ashish has done BTech from IIT Delhi in 2004, where he was also the General Secretary of student body in his final year. So Ashish sir, am I audible, Ashish sir?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so give me a message if you can see the presentation. Saurabh?
Yes, sir. I am meeting with the presenter. Just hold for a second, sir. Yes, sir. You are now the presenter. Now you can share your screen, sir. I can see your screen.
Okay, great. So Saurabh, thank you so much for the introduction. The topic I'm going to talk about is about climate change, and what is the big challenge which the humanity is facing in the current times, and what is the idea of sustainable engineering. Before I start my presentation and my discussion, I would also like to thank Professor Puniaji and Mr. Saurabh and the entire team at AICTE, All India Council of Technical Education, for having me as a speaker.
Sir, I would like to tell you, interrupt, sir. Colonel Venkat, Art Director, FDC, Faculty Development Cell. He could not introduce you to the public because he's busy in some meeting with our Vice Chairman, sir, and Chairman, sir. Probably he will be coming at the end. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Saurabh. Thank you.
You can continue now, sir. Ashish, sir.
Right. Thank you so much. So I'll, focus on the. Okay. So the first things first, and I'm also kind of referring to my first slide of the presentation. What does sustainable development and engineering mean to us? If we look at the current most impactful trends which the world is facing today, over the last 1.5, close to 2 years, COVID-19, the pandemic, then it was rapid urbanization, development of large cities, and then it comes, the basic topic of climate change and also changing demographics. What we have seen and what we will continue to see for the foreseeable future is that climate change is possibly the biggest threat, the biggest impact which this generation and the generations to come are going to see. And if nothing is done, at a very, very large scale, especially by engineers, it's going to have an impact which the humankind is never going to forget. That is the reason why sustainable development is very, very important. We as engineers, we play a very, very important role in developing nation's economy, developing new technologies, creating jobs, creating infrastructure, and many, many, many more things. But the important thing for us engineers, as new engineers, as experienced engineers, is to realize that it cannot be done in an unsustainable way. We have to manage the resource consumption. And that is the key goal for sustainable development. The most important thing to understand for anything being sustainable is, can this activity, the economic activity, or it's a production activity, it's a manufacturing activity, can it be done forever? If I have to give you a simple example, can we continue to pollute our rivers forever? The answer is no. But can we use the water which is in rivers in a sustainable way so that it is not polluted? The answer is yes. Anything which can be continued for very, 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 very long periods of time normally happens to be a sustainable business activity, a sustainable engineering activity. If we look at the economic impact of climate change, about 18% of the world's GDP, gross domestic product, can possibly get wiped out if the temperature rises by 3%. Now, a lot of us might be wondering, how are we responsible for the increase in global temperatures? The idea is a small factory, even a car, for example, or an automotive or an automobile, is contributing to increase in global temperatures. I think that's the most important thing. Everyone is involved in this, everyone, whether it's knowingly or unknowingly, but everyone is involved in this. A 2% rise in poverty can happen because of climate change. A United Nations report has predicted that India suffered $87 billion of losses every year because of extreme weather conditions. Now, these could be cyclones, these could be floods, which we have seen recently in places like Mumbai, Maharashtra, or Uttarakhand, or it could be even drought, for prolonged period of time. The most impact, although it's very difficult to classify, but one of the biggest impact of climate change will happen on the agricultural sector, and it can actually reduce the farm incomes by close to 15% in India. This is according to a study which was released today. The Brihan Mumbai Municipal Corporation actually warned the citizens of Mumbai in July of 2021, so about 3 months from today, that about 70% of the coastal areas of Mumbai can actually be submerged in the next 29, 30 odd years due to rising sea levels. So this is actually a very serious situation. We are not talking about something which is hundreds and hundreds of years away from us. We are talking about a problem which is right at our doorsteps, or it has already entered our lives, our societies, our nation, and the earth in general. The other thing which is very, very important is, what do we need to do? The first and the most important thing is to understand the concept of sustainability, especially as engineers, because we can bring new technologies, new changes to make sure that the resources are used in the most sustainable way. We should continue to make sure that we reduce non-renewable energy resources and we continue to use renewable resources. It is also important that the sustainable development does not prevent nations or societies from growing. It actually becomes an enabler, because otherwise there would be a resistance in the common public from it. We cannot stop the population from growing. We cannot change the rapid urbanization which is happening. But what we can learn and understand is how can we actually continue to have urbanization in a sustainable way with innovative engineering and technology based solutions. The other thing which is very, very important is that the time is now. It is very, very important to act now. If we do not act now, it's probably going to be too late. What is also important is that the climate change is going to have rapid ramifications on almost all branches of engineering, whether it is electrical engineering, whether it is civil engineering, whether it is mechanical engineering, whether it is energy or production engineering, and so on and so forth. And I'm actually going to talk about it in the rest of my presentation. What I'm actually suggesting, and this is important for both students and faculty who have joined this discussion today, that climate change or climate education should be added to the curriculum of all students, and for engineering students it should be sustainable engineering. We have to also make sure that we ensure that the indigenous practices which our generations have followed in India, we continue to study them and we continue to adapt them, because some of those practices are very favorable and sustainable from an economics perspective as well as an environmental perspective. This could especially be around usage of land, land reclamation, and how we manage our natural resources. What would also happen is, with the increase and with the introduction of climate education in our curriculum, we are also going to create lots and lots of opportunities for new jobs, for new enterprises, for startups, to make sure that the new requirements which are created because of this emergency, our students, our engineers are able to capitalize on those opportunities and they are able to safeguard their jobs and their future career. Our students need to be skilled to address these complex issues, and this will also give them the futuristic tools to ensure that they remain employable. As I mentioned earlier, it's going to impact all fields of engineering. Not even one single engineering branch is actually going to remain unaffected by this change. So it's important as engineers, when we study, for example, economics and some other courses, this is again something which should be studied by all branches of engineering. They need to understand the importance of Mother Nature, and they also need to minimize the negative impact of climate change. I'm going to give a global perspective and also what some of the leading nations are doing in this area. Italy and actually the whole of Europe is probably at the forefront of this initiative. Italy has already introduced a climate education for all its students. New Zealand has made it optional. Mexico is also saying that a basic understanding of nature and respect for the natural world is compulsory as part of the basic education program. The thing which is also very, very interesting here is to understand that there was a survey which was conducted in the United Kingdom, and about 70% of the teachers in faculty reported that because they did not receive any formal training on climate change, they may not be the best people to teach climate change or sustainable engineering. So a new initiative, which is called Teach the Teacher, has started as a campaign by some focused, successful climate groups like SOS UK, Mock COP26. and where the teachers are actually being taught by students on what are the issues in climate education, in climate justice, which they should be teaching in their classroom, and how to start a climate conversation in the classroom. I think this is phenomenal. India should, and I think students and teachers in India, especially in our technical colleges, in our engineering colleges, should also look at these opportunities and initiatives. Our Prime Minister, Sri Modi ji, has already mentioned that climate change is a big challenge for the entire ecosystem, and we need to step up the efforts. In fact, later this week, he is visiting the 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference, which is also known as COP26 in Glasgow in the UK, and also which is being co-hosted by Italy. So what is sustainable engineering? Sustainable engineering is the process of designing and operating systems so that the usage of energy and resources is done in a sustainable way to make sure that it does not compromise the natural environment, and it also meets the needs of future generations. For example, if we look at the top 5 sectors or maybe engineering branches which will get impacted by climate change, we are looking at a huge impact. We are talking about an annual loss of close to $1.5 trillion each year. And the top 5 subsectors or branches are going to be manufacturing, construction, agriculture, conventional energy, and transportation. So if I have to put things in perspective, India's nominal GDP is close to $3 trillion. So this is huge. This is almost half of India's GDP. Now, let me talk about what are the opportunities in sustainable engineering. So Larry Fink, who's the chief executive of the most famous investment firm, which is BlackRock, on 25th of October, so actually 3 days earlier, had said that the next 1,000 unicorns or startups with valuations over $1 billion will actually come from the green industry. If you look at the amount of money which was invested in green sustainable bonds, that was actually 60% more as compared to last year in this year. Saudi Arabia, which is the largest crude producer, producer of oil, petroleum products, has already mentioned that they want to reach a net zero emission by 2060, which is like 39 years from now. The Saudi Green Initiative would involve investments of close to $190 billion during this period of 39, 40 years. A lot of very, very senior government officials, international leaders have already said that the money which is required to fight the problem of climate change, no single country, no single government can actually do it on their own. So we are talking about a huge opportunity. We are talking about thousands and thousands and millions of jobs being replaced and recreated because of this. We are looking at close to $20 trillion being spent over the next 2 decades to make the world a carbon neutral by middle of the century, which is 2050. And Tesla, for example, which is probably the largest or the most well-known electric vehicle manufacturer, has already crossed the valuation of $1 trillion. Now, that's the kind of opportunity we are looking at in sustainable engineering. I think which is, kind of leading to my next slide. These are some of the investments which have been made in India in the electrical mobility sector. So, for example, on the 12th of May this year, it was announced that the production linked incentives, or what is known as PLI scheme, for the advanced chemistry cell would be close to 18,100 crores. Now, what is advanced chemistry cell? Now, this is basically the underlying technology, the underlying material which is required to manufacture batteries. Now, these batteries could be used in electric vehicles, this could be used in consumer electronics, this could be used in many, many other things. But the government of India wants Indian industry to be at the forefront of it, reduce our dependence on imports, and also make sure that India is at the forefront of electric vehicle industry or electric vehicle revolution. And that is the reason why this huge subsidy scheme has been announced. According to the India Energy Storage Alliance, the Indian electric vehicle industry is going to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 36% over the next 5 years. And we are looking at 6.3 million units or 63 lakh units or automobiles being sold over this period. I'm sure many of you, or I think all of you, would have heard about Ola Electric, which is now India's largest electric two-wheeler manufacturer. And they have also raised close to $200 million. And their valuation has already reached about $3 billion. Now, this would basically mean more and more opportunities for engineers who have studied sustainable engineering and sustainable manufacturing practices. A lot of people on this webinar might be thinking, but how does it impact us? So, for example, the mechanical engineer, the electrical engineers, might have studied internal combustion engines. The days are not too far when the need to study internal combustion engine might not be relevant, because more and more people would start shifting to electric vehicles. That's just an example. Okay. Last, but probably also very relevant, American investment company, Texas Pacific Group, has decided to invest close to 7,500 crores in Tata Motors electric vehicle subsidiary. So again, more and more investments are moving from the traditional automotive sector to electric vehicles, which are part of sustainable engineering. The second sector, which would probably see a massive disruption, a massive change, I wouldn't be surprised to call it a tectonic change, would be energy. More and more people, more and more companies, more and more governments, more and more nations would shift from non-renewable energy resources to clean energy resources. Reliance Industries, which is the largest oil refinery or the largest energy company in the private sector in India, has already stated its plans to invest close to 75,000 crores in clean energy, building 4 gigafactories. 2 of these acquisitions in the clean tech space has already been concluded by Reliance in October 2021. So the other thing which I would like to highlight in this sector is the speed at which things are changing. Most of the news articles, most of the references, most of the activities which you would see in my presentation today are all like 3 or 4 months old. So there is a lot happening in the sector. In fact, I would actually urge all the participants on this presentation today to keep an eye on newspapers, news articles, news sources, and start reading and making themselves aware of what's happening in this sector and how fast this sector is moving. The investment in Indian renewable energy sector has already crossed 5.2 lakh crores in the year 2020-2021. Adani Green Energy, which is also a major player, acquired SB Energy India, which is owned or which was owned by SoftBank, an enterprise value of 26,000 crores. Larsen and Toubro, or L&T, which is probably one of the most respected engineering firms in India, has already mentioned that they will be investing 5,000 crores to implement and adopt green energy practices, green energy in its manufacturing and construction sites to achieve a carbon and water neutrality target by 2035 or 2040. So we are talking about next 20 years max. And again, if the engineering students of today want to be employable tomorrow in some of these organizations and capitalize on these initiatives, they need to learn, they need to develop their capabilities in sustainable engineering. This is a sector which is also going to get impacted most. It's very relevant for engineers or engineering disciplines which will be impacted by this investments in the infrastructure sector. This could be electrical engineers, civil engineers, architects, for example. So Tata Power has already set up close to 2,000 charging stations for electric vehicles, and their ambition is to raise it to 10,000 charging stations over the next 5 years. Niti Aayog, for example, earlier this month launched Energy Map of India, which gives a holistic picture of all energy infrastructure, whether it's conventional, whether it's renewable, spread across India. Why is this important? Because this enables visualization. This enables proper planning. This enables assessment. This enables policy decision making. Not only sectors which are directly connected to energy, but also other sectors such as infrastructure, transportation, manufacturing, environment, and health. There are many examples, which we can talk about. Why is this map so important? It is, and I would actually encourage every participant on this presentation, on this webinar today, to actually go and have a look at, what is this energy map? How does it impact us? How does it impact engineers? How does it impact manufacturing sectors, and so on and so forth? The last, but still very, very important, UK government has already announced that they would invest close to $95 million in green tech infrastructure projects across India. Introducing the initiative here, as it was mentioned earlier by Saurabh during my introduction, we are talking about teaching, we're talking about helping engineers and future generation of engineers to understand climate change and sustainable engineering. I would encourage everyone to go and visit. It's, the portal. We have covered 17 major sectors, which includes electric vehicles, wind energy, water, medical technologies, and almost all the major sectors of engineering or major disciplines or departments of engineering which will get impacted by climate change. The initiative, the portal, is to help people understand the sustainable engineering practices, reduce time to learn using audiovisual tools, using quizzes, for example, also telling them about the jobs which are available in these sectors and how business is changing because of the impact of climate change. It's available free of cost, and it's available 24/7 on laptop, mobile, or tablets. Please have a look. It's spelled as engnr.in, and provide us feedback to make it better. I've also included some screenshots. This is how it looks when you see it on your computers. Thank you so much. And it's going to be Diwali next week. So wish everyone a very, very happy Diwali, safe Diwali. And I've also mentioned my email address. If you need to reach to us, do send us an email, and we would be happy to have a conversation. Thank you so much. Saurabh, over to you. Saurabh, you there? Hema, can you hear me?
आपकी कॉल को होल्ड पर रखा है, कृपया लाइन पर बात कर रहे हैं, उसने आपकी रहे हैं, उसने आपकी कॉल को होल्ड पर रखा की कॉल को
Ashish sir? Ashish sir?
Yes, Mr. Saurabh.
Yes, Ashish sir? Yes, Ashish sir? Alaikum, no. Alaikum, no. Alaikum, no. Alaikum, no. Alaikum. Hello. Yes, sir. Ashish sir? Ashish sir?
Yes, Saurabh, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I'm audible. You're audible, sir.
So, Saurabh, I'm taking some questions on the chat window, and after that, in another 5 or 6 minutes, I'll disconnect.
No problem, sir. No problem.
Can we get attendees to ask questions directly?
Yes, yes, yes. Sir, yes, yes, sir. You can ask anyone. You can unmute anyone. You have
Okay.
the authority.
Sure.
Right. अभी आया हो?
So, there is a question from Ms. Ankita, and she's asking, what is this carbon neutral world? So, to answer this question, essentially what happens is in our various activities, we generate carbon dioxide or we generate carbon. Standard, or a very simple example is when we drive an automobile or, when industries, create pollution. And then there are plants and trees and many other activities which actually consume carbon. We know the process of photosynthesis, where essentially carbon dioxide is used by plants, trees to produce food for themselves and also for further usage by other living beings. So essentially, it's the balance, and that is what is called as the carbon neutral world, where whatever is produced is consumed and there is a balance which is maintained between the left hand side of production and the right hand side of consumption. Anything which creates an imbalance creates a problem for the current and the future generations. And that's the basic explanation of carbon neutral world, if that answers your question. Okay, so I think Sheila ji has asked a very interesting question, which is how to improvise the climate curriculum to the students. I think the important thing is that there are two aspects to it. One, it has to be taught to every particular stream or branch of engineering. I think that's the important thing. So the way, some of us had economics or mathematics, in our first year at the start of the curriculum, the important thing is that everyone needs to have climate education, climate curriculum as a compulsory subject and not as an optional, which is sidelined by a few and taken by few. The other thing is that with respect to each and every branch, whether it is mechanical, whether it is electrical, whether it is civil, whether it's marine, whether it's you know anything else, we need to also have detailed courses by specialists like us, which would essentially enable them to take advantages of the jobs which will get created in the sector, which will be the requirement of future industries like electric vehicles, for example, or renewable energy. So it has to be a two-pronged approach. One, a basic level of curriculum for everyone who goes into engineering. And second is branch specific, curriculum specific, which talks about the impact and the change of um, sustainable engineering in that particular sector or subsector. Hope it answers your question, Sheila ji. All right, so thank you everyone. I will be disconnecting now. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today. And again, a big thank to Saurabh ji, Professor Punya ji, Colonel sir, and the entire team at AICTE to help me, have this message and interaction with students and faculties across India. And all the best, and wish everyone a very, very happy Diwali once again. Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye for now. Saurabh ji, I'll be disconnecting now.